There's a few more people ready to come in.
Everyone okay? A bit warm out, isn't it? We'll try and get as much air through the building as we can. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. My name is Clyde, I'm the pastor here at Victory Church. And really this is Public Child Protection Wales' event. But as a church, we're really passionate about this issue. And recently we've had our own events around this issue because it's very scary, isn't it? For children growing up now and for parents as well who have got kids in school. And it's really important that we're informed. So I want to just thank Kim and the team for doing such an amazing job. And yeah, let's give them a round of applause. And what I would encourage you to do tonight is tell people, because the more people that know about these issues, I found that as I've been telling people about this, speaking about this issue, even people that disagree on how it should be worked out, they don't know the fullness often. And knowledge is power. So we're going to hear a lot of knowledge tonight from Kim. So thank you, Kim. And welcome to the rest of the team. Adele, Lucia. Yeah, so wherever you are, welcome guys, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you all for coming. Those who don't know me, I'm Kim, and I'm Chair of Public Child Protection Wales. Public Child Protection Wales is an organisation set up for you guys, the parents. We set up this organisation off the back of our sex education campaign. We've been campaigning against mandatory sex education, but we discovered there was lots of failings and shortfalls in our safeguarding provisions and training. So we have no choice but to set up the organisation. Our main fight at this moment in time is against the RSE, Relationship and Sexuality Education. It feels strange saying that, because I'm a criminologist who specialises in child sex abuse. I support sex education, and I promote children's rights. So why am I standing here, fighting against this? Because this education is not right. All is not as it seems. So today I'm going to be doing a presentation, and we're going to be looking at some aspects of this. We're going to be discussing, first of all, something really important, is the legislation. This is important because what you'll find is your schools haven't even looked at this, and this is what's really tying us all up. We look at relationship and sexuality education as the government wants you to see and what you to believe. But then we'll be looking at comprehensive sexuality education. That is a global sexuality education, and that's the contract our government signed. We will then look at some lesson content from around the UK. This is a global sex education. We can show you global lesson content. But we need to keep this as close to home as possible so everyone understands and it keeps it real, okay? You can see what's going on around us. Then we'll be taking a little break, and the second half gets quite dark. So after the break, if some people have been affected by abuse or anything like that, you can't handle these issues, please do not come in for the second half until 15 minutes later, because the stuff I'm going to be showing you, you probably will never ever see in your life ever again. This is as close as what you'll get to actually witnessing these policies in practice, and it's really important. I don't do this often. I usually do this on a one-on-one basis. I think it's really important we see how these policies play out in the hands of the wrong people and how easily manipulated children are. Then we'll be doing a bit of myth busting. We look at the government response, and we finish on a high with the people's response. So the legislation. We have primary and secondary legislation. Secondary legislation does not override primary legislation. They work in unison, or they are amendments. What you see here is secondary legislation, the Curriculum and Assessment Wales Act. This is for the whole of the curriculum, not just sex education. What this Act does, it mandates 4 subjects for your children: English, Relationship and Sexuality Education, Religion, Values and Ethics, and Welsh. Those are the 4 mandatory subjects our government believe our children need to be confident, happy, healthy individuals. Section 77 of the Act talks about the RSE code. Now we've got RSE guidance and an RSE code. The RSE code is derived from UNESCO. We have information proving that by way of correspondence from Kirsty Williams and also reference throughout our documents. So let's just read this. I want to read section A here. So before issuing and revising the RSE code, the Welsh ministers must consult the persons they think appropriate, in brackets, if any. It's really important, if any. I don't know how many of you have taken part in any consultations regarding this so far, but this tells you they don't have to consult you if they don't deem you're appropriate. It goes on to say, then they lay down before Senedd Cymru a draft of the proposed code, in brackets, or in the case of revisions of the proposed revised code. What that means is the code can change at any time at the hands of the ministers. Nothing you can do about it, there's nothing the schools can do about it, there's nothing the teachers can do about it, it's in the hands of the ministers. So relationship and sexuality education. Why do we need RSE? Well, we're told it safeguards against sex abuse and inappropriate internet content, reproductive health and biology, meaningful relationships and being kind. I don't know about you, but I don't think we need a piece of legislation to be kind, do we? We don't need a piece of legislation to be kind. It's something we learn natural, part of growing up. We've got a picture of a nurse there, because we're discussing reproductive health and biology. It's a specialist field. Are the teachers now a gynaecologist? Are the teachers going to teach our children the importance of testicles if they twist and things like that? No, they're not, because they simply do not know. And I've got a photo of the police there, because obviously sex abuse is a crime. But the police don't know a lot about sex abuse. There's lots of different forms, there's many explanations, they all overlap and contradict. That's why we've got the sexual crimes team. The sexual crimes team deal with these issues. It's a specialist, complex field. But now we're asking teachers to become a sexual crimes team, a criminologist, or a specialist in this field. And there we have the government. The government are issuing this guidance and these laws. The schools are expected to enforce it. So now we have somebody with a music degree that has to act as nurse, specialist crimes, and enforce what the government put to them. So those are the reasons why they think we need RSE, and that's the weight of responsibility unfairly placed on our teachers. So this is the RSE code. This is what you're all going to be sent now. This is what was published January 2022. Our campaign began July 2020. So we clearly wasn't fighting this, was we? But we are going to fight this in court because this is all the government has left us with. The problem began here. You all would have probably had this document too. This is the RSE draft published February 2019. This is where I became involved. I've been following comprehensive sexuality education since 2013 because of my interest in sexual crimes. So when I discovered that we'd lost our parental opt-out, I found out through Wales Online, I knew what to look for. I'm familiar with it. So I found this document here online, published by the Welsh Government. Page 4 tells us to refer to UNESCO. UNESCO is Comprehensive Sexuality Education. So this document here, the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education, is something you will find on Hub. This is a global sex education. This is the document that was referenced in your draft. This is CSE, a rights-based approach. These are just frameworks. So you're being shown these frameworks, there's no lesson content with them, okay? So already we're discussing 3 different things. The legislation, the frameworks, and lesson content are 3 different strands altogether. This document here is beefed up with rights. It reads lovely. Children's rights, exercise their rights, bodily rights. But they've also exercised in something called the sexual and reproductive rights. That's what you'll see there on your right. Everyone has sexual and reproductive rights from birth. What these mean is the state can administer medication to a child without your consent. They're allowed to exercise body autonomy. They're allowed to engage in sexual activities because it is their right, as long as it's voluntary and consensual. There's parts of this document here, it starts from age 5 to 8. Like I said, this does read a lot better than the rest of them, okay? But this is just one in a long string of documents. This isn't a new document, this isn't the first, it's one of many. On the inside of this cover, you will see a declaration. It tells you who they're partnered with. They partnered with the World Health Organization, an organization called CICAS. CICAS actually write them, International Planned Parenthood, and more. I've mentioned before this document isn't as harsh as the others, but there are things to look out for. So for example, age 5 to 8. Humans enjoy their bodies and being close to others throughout their life. They understand physical enjoyment and excitement and natural feelings. Showing love through touching and intimacy. People show love by hugging, kissing, and through sexual behaviours. It also talks about good and bad touch. Everyone has a right to decide who touches their body. Again, age 5 to 8. Age 9 to 10, it starts talking about the key features of pregnancy, the signs of pregnancy, how to test for pregnancy, what to do if you're pregnant. Age 5 to 9. If we find ourselves in a situation where we've got children aged 9 to 12 who's pregnant, we need to be calling the police. Nothing else and no one else. That should be investigated. It certainly should not be discussed and dealt with in schools. Describe female and male sexual responses, masturbation, advantage and disadvantages of delaying sexual activity. Well, there's no disadvantages to delaying sexual activity, is there? Only advantages. For example, females, they're high risk of STIs. Why? Because their immune systems are low because of periods. Early sexual intercourse in an immature cervix will lead to cervical cancer, but we are being told, a job will deal with that. So on discovering we were part of this global sex education, we did further investigation. On your left here is the sexuality education in Europe and Central Asia. This document is a global document. You'll find it on lots of different websites. It's an overview of 25 countries. So in here, on page 174, there's a study in England. But next to the title and the word England is a star. If you go to the left-hand corner of the page, it tells you the studies were in England, but they apply to the whole of the UK. But on page 8 of this document, they boast about the UK being the last in Europe to accept this education. It also tells us all 4 UK governments signed up to this on the 1st of March 2017. It also tells us which documents they accepted, which framework they accepted, and that's that one there on your right. Standards for sexuality education in Europe. This document, this framework was accepted by the Department of Health, Department of Education, Children's Ministers and more, okay? How do we know this? Because this document here tells us, okay? We're not making it up, we need to look at these documents on our website. I've told you the pages, you can look and see it for yourself. So this document is shocking. Granted, you will not find it on the Welsh Government website, but it is the framework all four UK governments adopted, and it is their definition of sexuality we are promoting. This document starts from birth. Again, it preaches about exercising sexual rights. Sexual rights mean you can engage in consensual, voluntary and exciting sexual activities as long as it feels good, as long as you want it, as long as you consent. So the top of this document here, you can see 0 to 4. That's not page numbers, that's age. You'll see information fed into a child, the skills the child will acquire and the attitudes the child develops towards that. Now this is the matrix on page 38. There's lots of other sections here, but we've just chosen this little part just to show you the sexuality part. Because we're being told that we're reading this wrong. It's sexuality, not sex. Okay, let's test it. Let's look at sexuality for children aged 0 to 4. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body. Early childhood masturbation. The fact that enjoyment and physical closeness is a normal part of everyone's life. Tenderness and physical closeness and expression of love and affection. Gaining an awareness of gender identity. Talk about unpleasurable feelings in one's own body. Please hold on to these because we're going to be revisiting this later on. Express own needs and wishes and boundaries. For example, in the context of playing doctors. Age 4 to 6. Again, enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body. Early childhood masturbation. The meaning and expression of sexuality. Appropriate sexual language. Sexual feelings. Closeness, enjoyment, excitement. Consolidate gender identities, talk about sexual matters, use sexual language in a non-offensive way. Age 4 to 6. Here we are again, age 6 to 9. There's more to these, mind. As you go down a bit further as well, it's things like first love, secret love. These are the words they use in the documentation, children aged 0 to 4. That's why I urge you all to read this stuff yourself. Once you see, you can never unsee. You know, these things are implanted in your brain. It's a bit more difficult then for people to talk their way out of it. So age 6 to 9. Love, being in love, tenderness, sex in the media, enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, masturbation, stimulation, appropriate sexual language, deal with sex in the media, use sexual language in a non-offensive way, an understanding of acceptable sex, mutually consensual, voluntary, equal, age appropriate, context appropriate and self-respecting. Do you see a pattern here? As you come up to the age of 9, again in the UNESCO document as well, they will be discussing intercourse, okay? That is something that we've spotted, it's a bit of a pattern. Here we are, 9 to 12. First sexual experience. Gender orientation. Sexual behaviour of young people. Love, being in love. Pleasure, masturbation, orgasm. Difference between gender identity and biological sex. Communicate and understand different sexual feelings. Talk about sexuality in an appropriate way. Make conscious decisions of sexual experiences or not. And it goes on. What I've read to you here is just one section, the sexuality section. It's a 60-page document. I think you need to go and have a look for yourself. It does go on to age 15 as well, but I think we just go that far. Now, as you can see, there's a warning. Why have we issued a warning? We're talking about lesson content. We are very early stages of this comprehensive sexuality education in the UK. It's been in America for a long, long time. The damage being done to those children is untold, irreversible. But here we are, let's just have a look what we've actually got in the UK, shall we? So, what you would have noticed was a lot of talk of early childhood masturbation. That document was published in 2010. The newer versions talk about self-stimulation, so you see this terminology from 2018 onwards. We've just been discussing frameworks, okay, guidance. This is the lesson content from United Nations guidance. So this is UNESCO, alright? When you look, you will find things you believe this came from Warwickshire Council. We have a document I'm happy to send to you. It's a review of this in Warwickshire. It tells you it's CSE, it tells you it's on the UNESCO framework. The reason why it's not on our website yet is because we've taken it to court, but I will gladly give it to you on an individual basis. So let's look at this. This is in 241 schools in England. Children aged 6 and under. Let's have a look. There are also rules about touching yourself too. Now lots of people like to tickle or stroke themselves, they might feel nice. They might play with their hair, stroke their skin, or they may even touch their private parts. This is really very normal. However, some people may get cross or say that it is dirty, especially when you touch your own privates. This is really strange, but it's really very normal. However, it is not polite to do it when other people are about. It is something we should only do when we're alone, perhaps in the bath or shower, or in bed, a bit like picking your nose. It is certainly not polite to do it in the class when everyone is watching. Some people think that's sexual, some people think it's okay because they know children who put their hands in their trousers. I think it's absolute disgraceful that that's even gone to our classrooms. Do you know why? That is a barrier to non-verbal disclosure. If this hits every class in this country, we will never, ever, ever be able to spot a non-verbal disclosure in children. Let me explain. I say there's 4 types of children in the class, but as a nurse pointed out to me, it's actually not, it's 5. But we still go through the same kind of mental checklist. So we've got children who are touching themselves because they do it, okay? They just do it, they found an old boy and they want to play, that's what they do. Some children never ever bother. Some children have a medical condition. Some children have been neglected, they're doing it because it's soothing. Then we have children who are actually being abused. They are reenacting things, they're copying things, okay? They're playing out things that's happening to them in secret. That is what we call a non-verbal disclosure. It's for adults to know about this, to spot this, recognise it and investigate it. We have just programmed every single child in the country from the age of 4 away from a non-verbal disclosure. This lesson content is now a barrier to disclosure. It should be scrapped. It should be scrapped. We shouldn't be discussing anything further than this, but we are. So this one here, this now comes from the Scottish curriculum. And you might think that we go to involved governments and, we do our own education. But our curriculum has been written by Professor Donaldson. He also wrote the Curriculum of Excellence. Kirsty Williams has referenced Scotland's curriculum as well, and there's been plenty of talk about it. Plenty. It's failing. The Curriculum of Excellence in Scotland is failing, but our government says it's failing because it hasn't been implemented right. So let's just take a look. This is age 3 to 5. Looks fine. Head, knees, leg, penis, scrotum, testicles and vulva. You will be told that correct terminology safeguards. That isn't entirely true. You can give your children correct terminology if you choose to. Okay? That's your choice. You can do it. If you want to give your child a pet name for their privates, you can do that too. I don't call her a pet name, I call her a password. That's what it's like for me, it's a password. Why would you give everybody the password to child's genitalia? You wouldn't do it. You simply wouldn't do it. This is how perpetrators engage in discussion with children is through discussions with their genitalia. If they can pinpoint parts and they can engage in conversation, that is seen as consent. Don't take my word for it. I will show you a perpetrator's word for it later on. Again, this is also age 3 to 5. One way is that a woman and a man love each other and they have sex. This is a special thing that grown-ups can do. When they have sex, the man's penis goes in the woman's vagina and sperm comes out and goes into the egg inside the woman's body. So this is age 3 to 5. We've already seen a 9-year-old coming home from school, an autistic little boy's come home, he's going to bed with his mum, and he's trying to hamster an egg. He's given her sperm for a baby. So this is age 9 to 12. Again, genitals for private parts. If you look, guys, that is not a 9 and 12-year-old bodies. They are adult bodies, adult genitalia. This is what we call desensitizing people. I could do a whole presentation on the policies and desensitization and things like that, but I'm not going to bore you with it. I will do a podcast. We do rely on victim resistance in this country for safeguarding, and this is a way of getting around the victim resistance. And there we have the female reproductive organs. Well, you can see how many labels are there, you know, just how much detail do these children really need to know at this age. So here we have it again. Now this is age 9 to 12 again. Here we go a little step further. If a man and woman are having sex, they both want to do it. The man can put his penis inside the woman's vagina and gently move his penis in and out. This should feel nice for both people. When people have sex, they might have an orgasm. For a woman, an orgasm is a pleasurable feeling in her body. For a man, if he has an orgasm called ejaculation, white liquid called semen will come out of his hard penis. He will enjoy this feeling. So these lessons are obviously a mixed class. They've got boys and girls in them. Every single child in our lesson must take part. You know, there is no option for the children to come out. So as we go into age 12 to 15, where we should be having, you know, really good, robust, healthy sex education, we're actually giving children instructions on how to engage in sexual acts. So we've got oral sex, anal sex. Anal sex is promoted quite a lot throughout the documentation. It is also used as a means of contraception. Adam? So here we are, anal sex. This has come from a video commissioned by the SNP and the NSPCC, and what it's telling you here is how popular anal sex is. This diagram here, then, this is saying how good the sensation is. It's talking about pleasurable feelings and the pleasure points and things like that. Again, this is age 9 to 12. So here we have some screenshots from a video. This video has been removed now from the internet. The link is still in the lesson resources though, so I can send you this PowerPoint straight after. The references at the back. You will find the lesson content, you know, the lesson plan. At the bottom there you'll find the link to this video, but it has been removed from YouTube now. But it was there for a long time. What this is referring to, this is females. So 40% of women like anal and 30% will swallow. Here on the right hand side again, 40% of women like light bondage, that's what that chicken is. The bottom picture there, those two hot dogs, that is supposed to be threesomes. On the left hand side is the government commissioned lesson content again, it's called the Dice Game. You can purchase this from Ann Summers or any sex store, but you just won't get the government logo. Within these instructions, it tells the teacher to hold their nerve. Lesson content telling teachers they need to hold their nerve. So, I did do a little video on this a while back. I was screen recording some of the lesson content. So what I'll do now, I'll play a video that we made for Facebook a while back, but you'll see these pictures then, how they are displayed to children, the music we use and the enthusiasm. So this will just be a little snippet of what we've seen and where we've taken these from.
Actually swallow said load. Portion of women who've been in a threesome is less than 20%. And only 40% of women have tried anal. While the internet is awash in female squirters, only 6% of women say they regularly gush forth. Finally, what about light bondage? Well, only 40% have tried it. Wait, that's actually quite a lot. So there you go.
Types of porn, including but not limited to softcore, hardcore, lesbian, thespian, interracial, facial, alternative, conservative, hentai, far cry, BDSM, NEDM, amateur, mature porn.
In the teacher's defence, the lessons don't start out like that. The videos don't start out like that. It's a couple of minutes in, this kind of stuff kicks off. You know, and the teacher's just there in the class. So we can't really blame anyone because they've just taken the lesson content from the government website, the lesson plans, and these are the links that were there. Here as well, we've come across some cases where they've been asking young children to write gay letters as a way of accepting diversity. This is another classroom thing they use in guidance. This is called the Trans Toolkit. This is from 2019. Section 7.3 is about confidentiality and information sharing. This gives the pupils rights to change their uniform and name, and the teachers have to keep that confident and not share that information with you. There's a new one coming out now, it's just been published, the 2021 Trans Toolkit. That toolkit allows boys to go on female trips, female residential trips, mixed sex toilets, shared cubicles and things like that. That is the new updated version of the Trans Toolkit. And here we have an incident where this has happened. This very Trans Toolkit was used in a school in Rwanda. This child he had changed his name and uniform, and it took 2 weeks before the parents found out about it. And again, this toolkit is still being widely promoted. They will say it comes from Brighton Council, but, well, if you look at Brighton anyway, it's got the highest rate of children who don't know what gender they are. So that's the kind of thing we do get from this education. Something we've been coming across as well is this drag story hour. So in the top left-hand corner, we have the luscious Flowjob. Flowjob. Flowjob was the entertainer in Scotland. The parents went absolutely ballistic when they seen her social media. This is adult entertainment. These are adult entertainers. That's why they got this stuff on their social media. In the middle, we have Natalie. I can send you Natalie as well, her full video is on the reference slide. So everything you see here, you've got the link to, okay? Natalie there, that particular video. Why do the children put in those faces like that around her? I'll tell you why. On this video, Natalie's having a mock interview. The guy interviewing Natalie says, "Hey Natalie, what do you say to those kids that look up to you?" Excuse my language. She says, "Those kids that look up to me can suck my dick." Yep. And then the video then goes on to this gentleman here having feces dropped on his face. You can have the link to this. It's all at the end of the presentation. This fine specimen here on the right, this is our drawing artist, Ada HD. I'm quite offended if I go into HD. We call her Ada H. Hardon. Because she's either very well blessed or she's pleased to see those children. If you look closely there, you will see that it's always a big penis pulled right at the front of her clothes. And she's always stood over the 4-year-olds. This is just something that we've been putting up with. We keep getting told what's the difference between this and Widow 20? A hell of a lot. So I can't say a lot about these books. All I've been doing is when books of concern come up, I simply purchase them. I don't have time to read them. Lucia knows a lot more about the books than I do. But I do know that this Pop and Ollie collection is something you should look out for. There's also the gender wheel, it's like a rainbow where they're trying to show children you're not, you can be a different gender. You've got those books over there. There's other books called Sex, S-E-X. So yeah, these are books you really need to look out for, okay? They are indoctrinating the children. It's as simple as that, there's no two ways about that. So if it couldn't get any worse, it does get worse. The school sex survey. Has anyone heard about the school sex survey? Just a few, yeah? So this comes under the title of Health and Wellbeing, alright? Health and Wellbeing. And this is where Scotland issued a sex survey to all local authorities, and the local authorities issued this to the children. We first heard it was age 9, but the more it's in the media, they keep saying, oh, it was 11-year-olds, then it was 13-year-olds, then it was 15-year-olds, right? We don't quite know what the age was because it changes all the time. But what we do know is the questions were absolutely disgusting. So for example, have you had anal or vaginal sex more than once? Yes, no, prefer not to say. How old were you when you had sex for the first time? 13 years or younger? Statutory rape. Statutory rape age. Why are we even asking these questions? 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old, and it goes on. When you first had sex, would you personally say you wanted it to happen earlier, you wanted it to happen at the time, you would rather have had it later, you did not ask yourself that, you prefer not to say? There's over 60 questions in this survey. That's just a few that I screenshot and put them on. I didn't even choose which ones went on, they were just there, I put them on. Oh look, Mr. Drakeford. Survey asks school children as young as 13 when they first had sex. Wonder where this came from. Health and Wellbeing Survey. It was the Health and Wellbeing Survey last July. Did anyone know about this? No, neither did I. So we found the reports, we can't find the survey. As far as we can gather, there was like one question on sex, so we can scan that slowly. The reports we have found were on primary school children, not comp-based children, but I do have to go back and look, so I didn't look thoroughly. So they could be there, but the ones that jumped out on me was primary age reports, which in themselves they're alarming. Because in those reports it tells us that 75% of primary school children feel comfortable in their own skin, with 85% of primary school children believing absolutely every word the teacher tells them. That's why it's important we get this information correct, because what comes out of that teacher's mouth is wrong to the children. And then that brings me to the end of the first half, guys. That was RSE and CSE as it is in the UK. The second half of the presentation, we're going to be discussing where this has come from. and we're also going to be discussing my concerns here. We've been told these are paedophile conspiracies by the government, but they're not. It's paedophile policies, and I'm going to show you how they are paedophile policies. Because to protect your children from perpetrators of abuse, you must be able to think or understand them. Unless you know, think, understand, know the things they say, the excuses they make, how can you possibly properly safeguard a child? You cannot. And that's the road we're going to be taking you down next. So for the first 15 minutes of the second half, if you have been triggered or you are victims or survivors of abuse, please stay out for the first 15 minutes, because you are going to be experiencing, you're going to be witnessing a child engaging in these activities. Okay guys, so thank you all for watching the first half. Hello everyone. So I'm aware a few people are staying outside for the first part of the second part of the presentation. And that's because I'm going to be taking you to some dark places. It's just important, okay? It's not going to be nice, it's not pleasant, but it's factual. And this is what our children are up against. So if we aren't prepared to face it, then we're doing the children a disservice, aren't we? So this education, we are told, is for inclusivity and to be diverse and everything else. But the thing is, who does it include? It doesn't include the parents. It's not thinking of religion. No mention of disability. And something else I should put on this slide is no boy, no girl, no man, no woman, no male, no female. In 14,000 words in these two documents, they don't even mention male or female. So considering this is inclusivity and this is diverse, it's rather exclusion of the highest form, isn't it? So this education has been brought in under this title of inclusion, diversity and everything else. This is the point where I tell people to stand up and say, not in my name. Because this education has been brought in under your name, and then so far everything that we've brought forward and demonstrated to you has been absolutely nothing of LGBT. It's been all sexual and it's been safeguarding concerns. But the people who do get a say in your child's education, we've got Mermaids, that's a transgender organisation. They are battling with LGBT Alliance. Then we got the diversity role models. The diversity role models write sex education packages. They've even done a home education sex pack, sold by Asda. Their only qualification is their sexuality. If you look at the Asda home sex education pack, you'll see complaints by the Safe Schools Alliance UK. Their concerns are the same as mine. They're concerned that what we're dealing with here are PIE policies. PIE is a political party paedophile information exchange from the 80s, or 70s and 80s, but we'll discuss those in a minute. We are expressing these concerns that these are PIE policies. Then we have Stonewall. Stonewall, they've come under fire lately. There's lots of organisations coming away from them. There's court cases kicking off in England. But here we are in Wales. The government will have you believe that England is our enemy. So if England are doing something, Drakeford wants to do the opposite. England is seeing sense, Drakeford has got his foot on the gas. We have this fine gentleman here. He has more say than anyone. Is he your father? No. His name is Peter Tatchell. He campaigned for us to lose our parental opt-out. He campaigns for sex education for children. This man, there's a link on the end of his presentation you can access. This man believes sex with 9-year-old boys can be harmless. He thinks as well, he's been on TV, head-to-head with a transgender teacher, Debbie Hayton. Debbie Hayton is on our side. Eddie Hinton believes if your children are experiencing gender dysmorphic issues, then parents should be informed, but not Peter Tatchell. Peter Tatchell thinks all this should be kept away from you. But there we are, that's Peter Tatchell's view. So this has all come from somewhere, hasn't it? It's all come from somewhere. Sexual rights, exercise your rights, know what feels good, listen to your body, sexual from birth, sexual beings. Where does it all come from? It has come from America. It's come from a small group of people, started back in the late 1940s, published in the early 50s, and here's where we are now.
Hey, my name is Jody. I'm here to tell you about one of the most bizarre ideas. Sexuality education. It all started back in the 1950s with this crazy scientist guy called Alfred Kinsey. Kinsey did a whole pile of research with a bunch of pedophiles and rapists and called it the science of sexuality. This pervert actually paid pedophiles for information on how they were abusing kids and put it all in a book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male. So this guy travels the world and suckers all you adults into believing this story that this is serious science. And all along it's all based on abusing kids. He and his friends believe that babies have sexual rights from birth. I mean, what sort of person believes a baby has sexual rights? The type of person that believes that sex with kids is okay, and Kinsey believed that too. So Kinsey gets a wad of cash from the Rockefeller Foundation and Hugh Hefner of Playboy magazine, and he and his buddies set up the Kinsey Institute. Meanwhile, his friend, a guy called Warren Pomeroy, sets up another crazy group called the Sexual Information and Education Council of the United States, SECUS. So the next thing these guys do, they sucker the United Nations into believing this crap. And what do you know? The next thing that happens, SECUS write an education program for the United Nations. And every government in the world signs up to it. You couldn't make this garbage up if you tried. So now, school kids all over the world are taught from 3 years old about stuff like masturbation and all kinds of pornography, most of which I didn't even know existed. The whole world has been suckered into believing this crap, all except for one little country in the UK. It's called Wales. It's one of the only ones left. But the government there is just as gullible as the rest of them, and they want to bring this global program into your schools this year. I mean, teaching kids about all types of pornography. Don't they know that pornography can be addictive for kids, and it fuels human trafficking? The scary part is that parents won't have a say in what their kids are taught. Why? Because the United Nations calls the shots. And they believe, because Kinsey and his buddies believed, that kids have sexual rights from birth, and those rights trump the rights of the parents. So no offense to you Welsh, but you need to stop being sheep. You need to ask your government representatives what they're doing about protecting your kids from this Kinsey garbage. Because if this law is passed by the Welsh government later this year, you no longer have a choice. You no longer have a say. It's time to stand up and stop the sexualization of Welsh kids, because Wales deserves better.
So that video was done for us by a gentleman called Steve. He had seen me going balmy on Facebook one day, wondered what all the fuss was about, and within a few days he was phoning me. Do you know this? Do you know that? Do you know that? Yes, of course we know it. We just couldn't tell you guys straight away. It had to be spoon-fed. So this did start with one small group of people, and what I used to say here was the Kinsey Institute are direct advisors to UNESCO. I now have to change what I say, because I can't find that information, it's been buried. You will find at the bottom of the research papers, it does say Research Associates of Kinsey, but I have to drop that for now. But what I will say is the Kinsey Institute, an arm of the Kinsey Institute is CCAS. CCAS write our sex education frameworks. You can find this information just by opening the documents. On the front page there is always acknowledgements, okay? So the authors' names will be there. We have been told that this is irrelevant, this is from the 1940s and 50s. Well, actually, it is hugely relevant. They are still active today. They are now collecting this data via a mobile phone app. Now, there's a documentary you can access. It's referenced at the end of this presentation, but you can also find it on YouTube. It's called Secret History, Kinsey's Paedophiles. Record it before it's taken down, because you don't want to be hearing this from me, okay? You want to hear it from them. Let them tell you how they obtained this data. Let them tell you why they think we are sexual from birth, and then you'll understand where these sexual and reproductive rights have come from. Another massive issue with this education is the word gender. I've mentioned there's no such thing as boy, girl, male, female, man, woman in these documents, but gender is mentioned a total of 35 times. So when you hover over the word gender on their documents, their definition is gender identity, not gender reassignment, which is not a protected characteristic. We go into this road again of self-ID. So where does this gender theory come from? It comes from this guy here, John Money, and these two small children. So this is David Reimer and his brother. They both had an operation when they were small. They were being circumcised. David's operation went horribly wrong. He ended up with no penis, and they eventually went to see John Money. John Money told David's parents that he can be raised as a female because gender is a social construct. They forced this young boy to wear dresses, play with dolls and everything else. They even made him perform sex acts on his brother. He had to play the part of the female while his brother played the part of the male. This research was published, okay? And this is why I've had to bring this in, it's so important. So the research was published. Years later, David Reimer came out and said, well, he said the truth. He told them it was a failure. It was not a successful experiment, even though children shouldn't use the word experiment. But it was not a success. By that point, it was too late. John Money had published the research, just like Alfred Kinsey published the research. Now, when you're in academia, let's use an example. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. How do you know? I'm not allowed to write that. I've got to find somebody who said it before me, okay? So once this is published, and in these academic journals, people come along and they reference it. Then somebody else references it, then somebody else references, and that's how it goes along, okay? That's how academic research works. That's how it is still alive today and still in circulation. It doesn't matter whose paper you take on this gender or the sexual from birth, you follow those references back. You follow those references back, you follow those references back, and time again, we keep coming up to childbirth. Now, like I've said, I am so passionate about this. I'm a criminologist. Child sex abuse, especially institutional abuse, is my field. When I'm seeing paedophile policies and models of offending in our education documents, I have to speak up. I don't care if people are saying this is conspiracy. I need you to see these words in these documents coming out of the mouths of a perpetrator. Okay? The word paedophile to us is dirty, it's disgusting, it's evil, it's bad, it's dark. But the word paedophile isn't disgusting to everyone. It means child love. Child love. Something to celebrate, something special, something sensual. Okay, so we got two different types of people already with this word paedophile, okay? So this, I'm going to play this video for you now. This video goes from the 1980s, and the man on the right, your right, is not talking in the first clip. He comes on in the second clip. So the second clip then is up in I think it's 2012. Then it goes into a visual then, it's going to show you a 6-year-old child, okay? Done my best to protect this child's identity, because obviously I don't want to exploit her. It's important you know what feels good, listen to your body, pleasure, consent. It's important you see these policies in action, okay? And it's better coming from the mouth of the perpetrator and the innocent mouth of babes.
A child is able to recognise pleasurable experience. He is able to recognise pleasing emotional experience. He is able to express consent and to recognise that this is something he wishes to continue. And a responsible, caring paedophile, it always refers to the wishes of the child.
But even today, Tom O'Carroll argues he and other paedophiles should be allowed to have sex with children.
You keep saying, by the way, it's sex with children. It's not sex with children. It's sex, most people think, is sexual intercourse, penis in vagina, and a guy banging away until he gets orgasm. That's not what I mean by sex with children.
What are you talking
And I don't think we should talk in this sort of emotive fashion about sex with children.
What is a less emotive term?
Erotic contact with children.
And what would that involve?
Well, it might involve touching or masturbation.
In the warped view of the paedophile information exchange, the only harm caused by an adult having sex with a child occurs later, when the child is supposedly made to feel guilty about it.
If they were traumatised, they wouldn't have gone along.
You see, that's another lie that paedophiles spin. They say that the kids aren't traumatised.
No, I know. Wait a moment.
Believe me, they are traumatised.
Yes, but many years later, as a result of being told, it matters because they would not have been traumatised, but for being told that they had been abused.
So this is the point. You'd say that it's not the paedophile that's caused the abuse, it's the responsible authorities like the police.
Yes, absolutely.
So you don't accept that having sex with a child can cause any kind of...
Let me tell you, we're getting peculiarly hysterical. Many years later, when people are told that they have been abused and it keeps being rammed into them from the media all the time, then that is the feeling they come to get. They come to think that I must be traumatised because people keep telling me so.
Okay.
That's how it happens.
Can I put to you something in your book?
Mm-hmm.
There's a section in your book where you describe the scenario of a little girl sitting on a man's knee.
Yes.
And you describe approvingly how sexual relations with that little girl can be, quote, negotiated by hints and signals, such as complimenting her on her knickers and testing her response.
Yeah.
And what would be the adequate response from that little girl, Tom?
Enthusiasm.
What would that constitute? How would the little girl show you enthusiasm for you wanting to have sex with you?
Let's move away from...
No. Let's stick to this issue.
Well, all right, let's stick with the issue, but let me address it in my own way.
The little girl's sitting on your knee, and you just told her, I like your knickers.
Let me address it in my own way.
What does that little girl do to indicate that she's willing to consent to have sex with you, Tom?
How does somebody indicate willingness to have consent to anything?
A little girl cannot possibly be a consenting partner in that kind of power relationship. She's sitting on your knee, for God's sake.
Yes,
You're an adult.
Yes, she can.
You used the term enthusiasm. What does that little girl do to indicate that she's enthusiastic?
I think that we're going round and round in circles.
What is the answer?
We're going round and round in circles. I've given you my answer multiple times, so I'll finish there.
Which is a non-answer. You just can't answer.
Well, you think it's a non-answer. I think it's an answer. All right.
Now that's both of us. So, you're ready to continue with touching me, is that correct? Continuing sexual stuff. Why?
because I like it.
You like it
Because it feels good.
because it feels good.
And it feels good like it feels good to you.
It does feel good to me, although I've become much more uncomfortable with the idea of doing it since you are 6 and I'm also your dad. And I'm going to have more people aware of this conversation, specific people who are able to handle this, because I want them to know that you're willing to do it with me. And I've talked with 2 of them.
I'm really sorry about that, but that is child. Know what feels good. Listen to your body. Pleasurable and unpleasurable feelings. That is these policies in practice. You're never going to see that on the telly. You're never going to read that in the paper. Teachers do not understand the magnitude of this. They are not trained for it. These are the policies in practice. That was a paedophile information exchange. Members of the Paedophile Information Exchange are connected to the SNP, who have published 100 lesson plans online, who our former Education Minister was referencing. This is no joke. They can call it paedophile conspiracies all they want, but I dare them to do it to my face. Mark? So now we're going to do a little bit of myth busting, because we told this safeguards, more specifically correct terminology for body part safeguards. We've gone through this. You're giving the predators a way to negotiate. You're giving the predators an avenue of discussion. If your child can engage properly in that conversation, you just heard them say, that is a willing participant. You've heard that, okay? You've heard it with your own ears. This is what we're dealing with. This education protects children from accessing or seeing porn online. They tell them to search for it. They tell them to search for it. Desensitize it. You've heard the thing, you're born a paedophile? Well, do you know what? This reprograms the mind. I've got a son with autism. He's very well safeguarded. He's very well in the know. This was in his classroom when he was 7, 8, 9. He could be a danger to your children. They can undo the work I've done with him. My son then will be on the register? No. It's up to the government to protect our children from porn online. We had the top shelf years ago for a reason. Now we all, the whole of the UK, we will petition the UK government and big tech. Why do I have to learn how to lock my devices from my children? I should be learning how to unlock them, not learning how to lock them. So as well as protect children from seeing stuff online? Nonsense. Nonsense. That's the government and big tech failing. Lots of children have 2 mums or 2 dads. We hear this a lot. No, they don't. No, they do not. 2 females cannot produce. 2 males cannot produce. If they are parents, it's because they stepchildren or from a previous relationship, IVF or adoption. It's a very, very small proportion of people. We've been told, well, all the more reason, such a small minority. We address that in one way only. The children draw their family. And then we'll sit down and we'll discuss the family. What you'll find is some children may not even draw a human. Some people might draw their budgie and their fish, because in their head, that's their family. We do not put stuff in their head what a family should look like. Whatever they think their family should look like, that's family. Teachers are trained. Yeah, they train to teach. It's as simple as that. Level 2 safeguarding. What's level 2 safeguarding? Well, if there's an issue, they report it to safeguard lead. I'm safeguard lead, what's my job? My job is, I look at it and I say, does that go to the police? Does it go to the social services? Or does it go to the safeguarding board? That's my job as safeguard lead. Teachers, safeguard trained. They're not trained for institutional abuse. They're not trained for child sex abuse. If they was trained, they wouldn't be teaching maths, would they? They'd be teaching in a university or a college or working in a specialist field. So this is to protect against teen pregnancies and STIs. We've seen a reduction of teen pregnancies since the introduction of sex education. Actually, we've seen a reduction in all risky behaviours in adolescence since about 2008. 2010 it really started to dip, but 2008 it started to drop off. Why? Online. The children are online. They drink in less, they smoke in less, they take in less drugs, they less criminal damage, less risky behaviours, but the magnitude of the crimes are more serious. So there's less children engaging in these activities, but the ones who are, it seems to be far more violent or far more serious. So yeah, you could take that statistic, put it in your document and say, look, we've decreased teen pregnancies. But when you look at the wider picture, risky behaviours in general, it's all decreased. This is age appropriate. We've asked the government for an assessment tool to define age appropriate. Because if they are saying this is age appropriate, they have something to go off, yeah? They have an assessment tool or a scientific statement to define this. They simply cannot give it to us. It does not exist. Therefore, age appropriate doesn't exist. Or does it mean if we put in animations and put a bit of music, does that make it age appropriate then? Because that's the sense I'm getting here. Developmental appropriate. So this is developmental appropriate, but development again is individual based. It's on an individual basis. So how can this be age and developmental appropriate when there's no way of defining it? You simply can't. Then we've got consent is empowering. I'll come to that in a second now. Let's look at the developmental phases. So this is the most recent thing from the government now. We've discovered in the RSE code you will find the phases. Developmental phase. Phase 1 starts from age 3. Phase 2 from age 7. Phase 3 from age 11. So that's age groups. It's no longer per class. It's age groups. Age 3 to 6, 7 to 10, 11 to 16. So again, they can't pull it off. It's just words they're using. There's no way of doing this. So what they say, the 3-year-old can have the same education as a 6-year-old. We know when a child is ready to move on the next stage in maths and English. How do we know that? They completed the book before. They completed the task before. In the classroom, we got 3 groups of children. The lower maths, average maths, higher maths. Red readers, yellow readers, blue readers. Different groups on reading and writing and maths. How are they going to do it with this sex education? We simply do not know. So coming back to consent, we keep getting told that, oh, this is about consenting to your auntie touching your hand, or if you don't want your nan to kiss you, or whatever else. That's a load of nonsense, isn't it? Because if you don't want nobody touching you, you say no. Say no. It's simple as that. No. Not does it feel good? Do you mind if I do that? It's a flat out no, an empowering no. So we look at phase 1 here, and what they're saying is understanding consent, beginning to recognise other people's feelings. But then we got on phase 3 there, we've got understanding the importance of consent for safe and healthy relationships, in particular sexual relationships. In particular, sexual relationships. So, you've seen it from the horses' mouths, how they believe children can consent. I have spoken to teachers who believe they are empowering children by teaching them consent. Consent is a massive issue. It features on the Sexual Offences Act 2003. It's been an amendment, an added amendment to recognise child sexual exploitation. CSE, they consent. It's problematic for conviction. Consent is massively problematic. Teenagers believe they're in a consensual relationship. Years later, they realise they've been exploited. So even the teenagers, do we teach them to consent? No. We teach them the consequence of consent. When these children are engaging in these activities, they very often love that person. They're not going to just dog them in. They're not going to see what they're doing is wrong. They need to understand the consequences. They need to understand that person they believe they're in love with is committing a serious offence. We need them to understand the longer this goes on, the more trouble the person they love is going to be in. That's how we teach them the consequence of consent. We never, ever, ever teach a child how to consent because you've seen what predators believe consent is. Consent is simply giving way or engaging in conversations. We do not open that door. So we've been fighting this for 2 years. What has the government's response been? Well, for a start, they've called us paedophile conspiracies. We've taken part in 2 consultations. They've rejected everything we said. We rejected the first consultation, 87% didn't want it, they ignored it. The second consultation, they didn't mention RSE, 68% of us did. They still went ahead and did it anyway. Kirsty Williams, our former education minister, I wrote to her when I first found out about this. Genuinely believed the woman had made a mistake, genuinely believed that she didn't know what she was doing. I asked for her skills, qualifications, her knowledge, work experience. She got somebody else to write back. That person said that 5,000 civil servants and researchers were working on this education. A Freedom of Information request come back and said there was no 5,000 civil servants or researchers. It was Welsh Government and Welsh Government alone. We then did a petition. They removed our links from the petition. All the links to these documents they removed. Your children's sexual and reproductive rights, they replaced that with a pro-abortion website. We found the other night they published it, they removed it after us kicking off. They made a mockery of our petition. It had half the information in it. They rang us up then on 26th of November. They said if you don't get 5,000 signatures by the 1st of December, it goes up to 10,000. So when was this decision made? A couple of weeks ago. Why didn't you tell us? Oh, because you were different. But we did it. We made the 5,000 signatures. And Kirsty was... So Kirsty Williams had to respond to what we had in our petition at that time, which wasn't a lot. She replied by saying, what we had said was wholly inaccurate and false. 2 paragraphs later, she referenced it, co-constructed by UNESCO. So then we had to respond then to her response, and we had to submit evidence to the Petitions Committee. You only allowed 4 pages of paper, but we submitted 17 pieces of evidence. They had their debate, they didn't even look at the evidence. They took Dave Rowlands, he was the chair of the Petitions Committee, they suddenly took him from them. I wonder why. They said, we don't know what's misinformation and what's not misinformation. They couldn't even be bothered to check. They told us on the TV they were going to put a watch and brief on this, keep an eye on things. They lied. That same night, they published a document online saying they have to, as a matter of urgency, launch a campaign against the misinformation. We found that document about 6 weeks ago. So, they have kicked this into the long grass, they have ignored us at every point, they will not have a discussion with me, none of them. I've offered to go in and see all 60 ministers, by, all of them onto me, not one will speak to any of us. We've had Lynn Eagle. Lynn Eagle called a girl a liar, blocked her on Facebook. I gave Lynn the opportunity to apologise, or I would do a video on her. Lynn didn't apologise, so I had to do the video on her. It took 24 hours for Lynn to get that video removed from YouTube. Far too much evidence in it. Lara said to Lynn, If you don't stand by us as RSE, I will not vote for you in the election. She said, I'll take my chances. Dennis, stealing a needle in Tesco's. He starts asking her about the sex education. Obviously, she denied a lot of it, she wouldn't answer the questions on anal sex. And when he mentioned to her about going to court, do you know what she said? Oh yes, but we'll win that hands down. 2 days later, a little envelope comes through my door. We have been granted a judicial review. So she wasn't banking on that, of course. In actual fact, neither was our legal team banking on it. We were prepared for the rejection. We were prepared to go in and give our oral evidence and fight it further. But what Judge Justice Turner actually said in the High Court in London, he said the issues raised on behalf of the claimants involve complex constitutional matters with potentially very significant consequences for both parents and children. He did go on to say the argument provided by the government did hold a bit of clout, but it simply wasn't good enough, so we have to go in and have this discussion. But this is going to cost us £100,000. £100,000 to go in there and get some answers. We can't even go in and fight the Curriculum Assessment Act. Do you know why we can't go in and fight that law? Because they messed it up. They messed it up. They want you to think you've lost your parental opt-out. They want the schools to think you lost your parental opt-out. But you know what? Remember I said about primary and secondary legislation? The secondary legislation doesn't complement primary legislation. Section 9 takes you back to the 1996 Act. And you know what? You've lost your parental opt-out in England. So, we couldn't even go into court with the law because they haven't legislated. They think they've legislated, the schools think they legislated, but they've messed up on the law. So that's our loophole. Our loophole for you guys to use the first day of term. What this Section 9 does is a principle, not an action. It's never been used before as an action, so we are going to be the first ones to do that. What this does is it places responsibility on the head teacher of the school. If the head teacher allows these lessons without your consent, that head teacher has broken the law. That is our loophole. That is the reason why we cannot go into court against the Curriculum and Assessment Act. We have no choice but to go in against the RSE code and the guidance. Something I did not want to do, because I watched this so many times, I was going after the Act. But you know what? They messed up the Act. So that gives us a bit of breathing space. So on the first day of term, this will be on our website for you all to issue. We need 22 people at least for the 22 local authorities, but we want 1,500 for all of those schools. There are children there, looked after children. Children who don't have parents. We need to be the responsible adults for those children. So we have been quite successful on our fight, even in spite of the censorship and the lockdown, we've done well. But we're not doing well enough. We are going into court, but a win in court isn't a win. If we win in court and we come outside and nobody's there, they'll change it back. Nobody's going to know. So a win in court isn't always a win. A win in court guarantees us one thing. We get our £100,000 back. That £100,000 then will be used for teacher training. And we will make sure that teachers, in the legislation, teachers have to have a level 4 training in child sex abuse and institutional abuse. That training is our insurance. That training will stop this education coming along ever again. This will shut it down for good, because the teachers will be trained to see it. The teachers will be trained to look for it. Therefore, this can never ever happen again. If we have teachers trained to this standard, this will never ever come into the classrooms. And that's why this fight needs to be an awareness fight. It needs to be a movement. Because we can go into that court and we can lose the court case, but we haven't lost the fight. We only lose the money. Because when we come out, there's a whole sea of people. Nobody can do nothing, nobody can go nowhere. We have put a stop to it here in Wales. We haven't just put a stop to it here in Wales, we've put a stop to it all across the UK. They signed the same contracts. There is a war on our children. We do not choose where we go to war. We go where we are needed. And right now, everybody is needed in Wales. This is dark, this is frustrating, this is sad, it's upsetting. Everybody's got high anxiety. But like I said, we set up PCP because of the safeguarding policies, the failures in the training and everything else. Oh, guys, my mind was really blank. Yeah, so, wait, let's just go to the next slide. Sorry about that, guys, it's never happened to me before. So, that's the same, sorry guys, yeah. So this education's in 52 countries, okay? And once it comes in, it never goes out. And that's why we need to do it here in Wales. Because we don't just save every child in the UK, we make history. We will set precedents for the whole of the world. This has never been achieved before, never ever. We are Wales, we're the smallest, but the strongest. We can get north and south back in a day, east and west in a single day. We are doing it. Most of you have seen us do it. We can do this. We are doing it. We are absolutely going to smash it. How can we do it? There's only one way we can do it, guys, and that's by fundraising. Not fundraising, fundraising. We need to enjoy it. Where's the energy? Where's the excitement? We raise fund, right? Because that raises the vibration, that raises our spirit, that gets us all going. Fundraising is for boring people. Fundraising is for the Welsh. We need to enjoy screwing our government like they've enjoyed screwing us. And anything else is not acceptable. We've had some fundraisers taking place. We've had Darren walking 140 miles across Wales. It should have been in every paper in the country, but instead they had the guy rolling a tyre at Pen y Fan. We've had the 24-hour skate-a-thon. Nobody could skate, but you know what? What a wonderful day, because the awareness on that promenade was second to none. We've had the 3 peaks. There's been a team. They did the 3 peaks in less than 24 hours in torrential weather. So we have been trying really hard. We've got the raffle as well. We've got a massive raffle. That's £5 a ticket with a hot tub. We've got the craft raffle, all one-off pieces. We are trying our best. But we can do a sponsored event every week. The same people are going to be sponsoring us. It's going to be the same lot, you know. £100,000 as well. It seems massive, doesn't it? It's only 16 pence per child in Wales. 16 pence per child. £1. How many children have we saved for that? £5. How many children have we saved for that? This is what we got to do. We make it small, we make it manageable, and together we will absolutely smash it. This is our fight in Wales, yes. You will see PCP doing most of the stuff here, but it's not just down to us. You don't take your lead from us. This is your fight too. You do what you want, how you want, when you want, okay? The main issue is we come together when it matters. We need awareness, we need the money, but most of all, we need the people. This is not about us. This is not about people calling us names, being afraid to offend people. I'm more scared of this education than I am of offending people. This is where we all need to be brave now, guys. We need to straighten our spines, chins up, and we charge. Because we take the blows today, so our children don't have to tomorrow. Wales has a terrible history of child sex abuse, institutional sex abuse. We have failed our children so many times in the care homes, in the religious establishments, the sports teams, the schools. In 3 academic years in South Wales Police alone, there was over 529 sexual assaults and rapes in schools. 192 were perpetrated by children, the rest were by adults. I've been following the Education Workforce Council Fitness to Practice panels since September 2020. A third are sexually motivated. We have problems. Like I said, we are going to win. There's no two ways about that. We are going to win out here because we need the movement. The movement is important for our children. But we're also going to win in the court, because the win in the court means our money comes back to us and we can have a teacher training package that is actually world class. We can put this country on the map for safeguarding. It's not rocket science, it's just common sense. Right, just before I hand you over to Adele, because obviously Adele has been fighting passionately in this area since the day we met. She's had a bit of a bout of Flynn Legal, she's got angry with Anthony Hunt. Yes, I'm passing you over to Adele in a minute. She's got some stuff to say to you, and she also wants to talk about the fundraiser. But this is your opportunity now to grill me, okay? I don't claim to know it all, but what I do know, I know very damn well. And I'm not going to shy away from you like the government. I'm not going to give you whitewashed documents. If there are questions or you've got a problem with me, I am here now for you to do that. So has anyone got any questions or anything for me?
Do we actually know where when we're talking about the whole thing like naming the correct body parts is due safeguarding, do we actually know where that belief has come from? Because what I'm finding is there seems to be a lot of repetition of, the information that's out there, but people aren't necessarily critically assessing what they're being told. So do we actually know where that belief has come from, that educators themselves and government officials are saying that's the case?
That's a fantastic question, because I've been trying to get to the bottom of it for years. There's a social worker in Somerset, Jock, something his name is. He's apparently been a specialist child social worker for 23 years. And his experience of perpetrators, apparently correct terminology means they won't offend. But if he's been in the field of child protection, children's services for 23 years, he hasn't had no contact with perpetrators, So I've asked him for that research. The only research that keeps coming back to us is where they are assessing how many children know about correct terminology. We keep getting the example of my uncle licked my cookie or my uncle stroked my mouse. Well, that is no reason to bring in this correct terminology. That is where the teacher needs time then to engage in that conversation with the child. What's your mouse's name? What cookies do you like? So it's simple, it really is that simple. So this whole correct terminology for me, if we could find that research, like I said, I'm still looking for it myself. We did come across a study the other day, and all it was how many children knew about correct terminology. All the offender narratives I read, that is a way of engaging with people. Victim resistance is the thing that actually safeguards them, and that could be a shriek. So where this idea comes from, I simply do not know. I'm still looking myself, because that would be a very interesting debate if we could get the academics who say this safeguards against the academics who say it doesn't safeguard. That would be one hell of a show, and I'd love to take part in that. But I wish I could answer that better for you. I simply do not know. I am trying to find it, if it exists. Anyone else?
Firstly, thank you for tonight. It's been excellent. I've got two questions really. I think you talked about, is it section 7 about the loophole? Because we've been told point blank by the headmistress, who I did invite here tonight, which sadly was informed of, that we can't remove our children in September. But can you just elaborate on what you talked about that, right? Just to get some clarity on it. And second of all, is what advice can you give on awareness? Because I think the party line with parents is, oh, I've looked at the curriculum, it's okay, it's all very innocent, and I would rather my children find out about this from teachers rather, and I think there's a massive, it's either apathy or lack of awareness and more, practical advice can you give that we don't look like a raving conspiracy maniac?
Right, so on the thing of the law, like we said, at face value, yes, they've legislated to remove your parental opt-out. At face value, yes, the teachers have to enforce this. But this document now, the Section 9 of the 1996 or 1984 Education Act, that mentions you've only lost your parental opt-out in England. It says the words in England. So that is something that they overlooked. But that is our loophole. So the practicality of this Section 9 that we give you now in September, what should happen with that is they should have a Board of Governors meeting. That should go straight to the local authority legal department, and obviously it's up to the legislators then to go to war with each other. It's completely out of our hands. As far as that's telling us, if that head teacher allows your child to take part in these lessons, he has or she has broken the law. So that's that there. It's a bit of a loophole which hasn't been used. We think it must have been a mistake, and that's the reason why we cannot fight the law in court, because the law is not as they are saying. So this has been written out for you. There's case law put in as well. Everything's been done properly. It's taken a bit longer as well because we want to get it right. We don't want anyone, what?
Is there a template that maybe you could provide to parents like ourselves, where we're all saying the correct thing,
yeah,
legitimate, legal and legitimate. So when it is basically causing a ripple then.
Yes.
We know that they do have this, I suppose, battle going back and forth, but that we do need legality and it to be legitimate with the cases that we
yes.
in, not for it to be dismissed.
Right, so there's going to be case law in it as well. It's all written perfectly. Our legal team has looked over it as well. It's all going to be legit for you. So there's going to be nothing to worry about. It will be on our website the 1st of September. We did want to give it to you by the end of term, but we pulled it out last minute because that gives them 6 weeks to loop the loop. We don't want that, okay? We want to cause as much chaos as possible. As for the parents and the awareness, what we found was we couldn't even say about Kinsey, right, for a long time. We had to drum into people's heads that this wasn't a Welsh education. So focus on that. This isn't a Welsh education. The government are referencing global sex education. Look what's happening in Scotland, look what's happening in England. It's just, you just got to keep drumming that message home. It takes something, like, it could be anything for someone. Like one guy had seen 2 posters, completely ignored them. He's seen the 3rd one in the park with his missus, and that was when he acted. It's going to be different things for different people. I will openly admit here that when I seen this in England, I should have acted more, but I didn't. I did honestly think, well, that's England's problem. And a lot of people are going to think like that. And here I am now with my egg on my face. It wasn't England's problem. Little did we know, all of us had the problem. So I think it's about showing people the documents. Like there's sexuality one on our website. Print off the cover, page 8 and page 174. That's all I do is the cover, those pages where it tells you. Also, we got videos as well on YouTube explaining this, going into each document, highlighting each document, and it's all fully referenced. There's no easy fix to this. They have to investigate. It's simple as that, they have to investigate. This is why we encourage people to see it with their own eyes. Some people, like I said, this is such a taboo subject anyway. And once people are being told that children are being safe, they're in an environment, a school, just the profession itself grooms us. It's a false sense of security, the DPS, another false sense of security. So we do have these social constructs then, really, that make us believe that these are safe places and the children are in the best hands. So there's lots of different barriers to break down. There's no one straight answer, it's just a case of chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. But what I do advise is, don't waste your time. If we need to keep moving fast. If people aren't getting it, you have to move on. You planted our seed. It might crack through, it might not. Our seed has been planted, you have to move on. If we're engaging in these conversations with people who are not believing it anyway, we then become a time waster. We haven't got time to waste on this. So it's a case of, like I keep saying to the girls, in an ideal world, right, this is going to go and people will forever think we were nut jobs. That's an ideal world, okay? It's not going to, children are not going to come home with it because we would have cracked it, and it's not going to come out of the mouth of babes. But this is not an ideal world. We are going to see casualties. We've seen one boy come home thinking he can put a sperm on his mother's leg for a baby. We've had another boy coming home saying he's allowed to show people his genitals as long as he says. We've had a young little 6-year-old telling her grandfather she knows what's in his pants. So it's just, people are going to have to, I know this is sad, but some people are just going to have to face the consequences, I'm afraid. Anyway, let's go there.
So how do you see this impacting directly the infant removal rates, both from the children who are getting pregnant younger and from their parents as well?
Repeat that one.
So we're having infant removal quite for 4 cases of sexual assault and potential future emotional harm. Do you see this education causing a spike in that?
Massively. I've got a big issue anyway with social services and things like that. I personally am involved in family court cases a lot. I've got quite a lot of casework on. This is something that I do see happening a lot of. More specifically with the sexual and reproductive rights as well. So it's not just the aspects of people getting pregnant young and their children getting pregnant young and their children being removed. There is also aspects where your children can be removed with breaching your child's right to an education and their sexual and reproductive rights. This is something that's happening a lot in America. We do need to look at America because they are about 10 years in front of us. And if we want to know what's going to happen here, we need to be looking there. So yeah, this is definitely, this is what I mean. This is, on the teachers' questions, one of the questions that we put out was, how are you going to enforce this to the schools? Because we know that when a parent becomes a bit of a problem, the schools tend to turn to local authority. So that is definitely an area that we are keen to advance. Not a lot of people are going to understand that, so thanks for bringing that up.
Are they going to fit the bill for the therapy? Well, you want to know, but...
You want to say something? Oh yeah, we want, but Cam's waiting to list up for 4 years.
Okay, I just want to say thank you, just to encourage you in what you are doing. It is really a dark, it's really dark what I see, you know, and I believe that every parent should be concerned, and nobody should just stay with being passive about this, because something has to, you know, happen. I've got 3 children. One will be 5 next month. The other one will be 4 next month. So I can't just imagine. I can't imagine them being taught some of these things. I can't imagine it. So, despite the fact I will be moving, I mean, we've prepared leaving the UK, you know, next month. But I think it's something I will want to contribute to, I want to support, and everybody really should have to do something. But somehow I kind of feel, is it not late, or it's not getting late? Because September is already here. So just to encourage you, and to say every one of us needs to do something. In-house education, we need to speed that up a lot more. Community-based, church-based education, I believe we need to speed that up. So, again, by September, if you kind of highlight to us more of what we can do as parents. I know you've talked about it, but just to encourage you, so keep going.
Thank you. Well, when we first started this campaign, this was obviously a preventative campaign. We wanted to prevent this coming altogether. Now, unfortunately, we have this damage limitation. So we are going to see casualties from this because the deadline for this is September 2022, which means some of it is being dripped in anyway. It's not going to come in hard and fast, especially if now they know that we're out there. They're going to want to make us look like idiots, really, aren't they, for as long as possible. But we need to fight it. We need to all do whatever we can. There is something we all can do. And as I said, you just have to keep moving on. Keep moving on, keep moving on. The teachers are the worst. They are the worst for this. We've got two types of teachers. The ones who think they know it all and the ones who won't say nothing at all. This is your moment, teachers. You know, we're here to help you. This is unity. We actually want you to have better training. We want you to have more time with our children. We don't want you doing paperwork. We don't want you doing the work of a social worker. We don't want you doing the work of a nurse. Do the job you're trained to do, that's teach. And you can only do that in a 3-way partnership, and that's parent, student, school.
We had a meeting at the school about the education, the Welsh education. Out of 400 parents, 4 parents turned up. Only I mentioned the RSE. The headmaster said that he was going to take a conservative approach on it. I wasn't convinced, not really. But I'm worried if I become a problem, because I'm the only one out of the whole school that is going to say something. If I become a problem, will they make me a problem and take my children away from me?
That is a concern, and that is a genuine concern. Some people might think that's far-fetched, but it's not far-fetched. That's just something that Ruth mentioned here as well. It is a concern. But if you do find you're on your own and you're facing these battles, you get in touch with us. Because I do these kind of cases daily anyway. I don't speak about the casework I do because it's all confidential. Nobody's on their own on this. We're all in this together. We travel to support each other, okay? We will book time off work. We will do whatever we can to support the families in this country, because the families speaking out are speaking out on behalf of all of the children. There's going to be no child left behind, which means no parent left behind. So if you do find yourself in that situation, you contact us, and again, we come out hard and fast. We stick together. That's the only way we're going to get through this, is by sticking together. If they want to try and bully us, bring it on. We'll deal with them.
Similar to the lady, actually, we had a workshop that was advertised at New Inn Primary School that in the whole of the primary school only about 10 people attended. Luckily there was a few like-minded people that were quite vocal during the workshop, which was great, which I think the government and the teacher were quite shocked about and horrified really. But the point of it is the headmistress was present at the time, and we got her to commit to say that when the curriculum actually does get written, ready for September, because every school writes their own kind of curriculum covering the RSE, we got her to commit to say that we would be allowed to see the material going forward in all the classes. So the point of this is that if any parents are quite concerned about what is my child going to be taught in their class, we were given permission to now see the material going forward, to know what the children are going to be taught, depending on how mild or, I guess, as to how you feel, which that could be quite reassuring or not. The other thing as well with the legislation, I think a test case would be nice to see in Wales. So if somebody does take advantage of the opt-out, once we get to see the material, how, as far as law and legislation, will that stand? Because, like what you're taking forward now, is that it kind of, the bracket comes under England, where they've always seen it as in Wales. So if it does stand in court, from a criminal side, which a lot of people may be familiar with the gentleman in Birmingham who's been, was going under the criminal offence side for taking the child out, of the lessons. Then in Wales, how would this stand? Because it's kind of gone through under England and they've missed it under Wales, you know. So I think a test case would be nice if a parent takes out a child and they try to go down the criminal offence route, which that's what they'll try with the compulsory opt-out. And I think that'll cause a nice ripple effect and given people and empower a lot of the parents then to take their children out of RSE classes. Yeah, fingers crossed.
But this is the more difficult part. What we're dealing with here is not a single lesson. They're doing the whole school approach. So this is in every single subject. It's going to be maths, history, geography. And we had one teacher saying, for argument's sake in maths, how many percentage of people got chlamydia? It's just insane. What we're hoping for is, we know 68% of teachers don't like teaching sex education. You can't get out of it now, teachers. You need to come forward. We have got you, okay? That's why we are out here standing here. We are here for the bullets, the daggers, the arrows. Throw them at us, okay? We are here so you guys can all come up and have your voice. That's teachers, that's religion, that's whoever you are. You've got a voice and you've got a voice through us. If there are children who want to take this case to court, they are more than welcome to have an intervention on our case as well. Don't forget, children's rights are law in Wales. They keep telling us the children's word is law. Well, nobody's asked the children about this education. There was a case where 12-year-olds had to put condoms on a dildo, and some children refused. The teacher said, you have to do it. If that was my son, that teacher would now be in a police station for non-contact sex abuse. So this is the kind of things we're dealing with, guys, right? We need to give people confidence. What I've been advising is coffee hours, whether that's in the morning or the evening. Get together once a week. Get together once a week, even if there's 2 or 3 of you, it could be 10 of you. What you'll find is somebody's watching you get together. Somebody who's got no confidence. They might not come the first 4 times, they might come the 5th time. We have to lead by example. We have to somehow make this as fashionable as Elf on the Shelf, right? Which is difficult, and you're not getting the likes on Facebook, people like that. But this is what it's about, guys. We have to try and make this fashionable. We have to make it energetic. The rest of the world is watching. All eyes are on Wales, you know. Why was Wales last in this? Because they knew heads would roll. Let's not disappoint. Let's roll some heads.
You're talking about children's rights here. I've got a bit of a dilemma. I took my children out to the school on hearing about all of this. Youngest is okay. She's quite happy to be out of school. Eldest really wants to go back. Mum's obviously not happy about this because I don't want my kids learning about this. How does that affect me if she goes to social services and said, my mum won't allow me my right to go to school?
You're breaching your child's right to an education.
How am I breaching my child's right to an education when I'm educating her?
Well, if your daughter's saying she wants that education, the way the system will look at is if you are preventing her from having an education.
However, she's getting an education because I'm providing the education. The local education authority are happy with what I'm providing as an education. She's not being prevented from having an education. She's being prevented from being sexualised because I recognise what's going on in the school. How do you get around that if she starts talking to other people, saying I want to go back to school, my mum won't let me go, things like that? How are we supposed to protect these kids in situations like that? Social services are quite happy to get involved. I know this from previous experience. I've already told them to go away several times. But like I said, it's one of those situations where you really don't know how that's going to affect the child when she's older. She's probably going to end up hating me for taking her away from all her friends, even though she sees them every day. What am I supposed to do in that situation? I don't want to learn in this stuff. And to be quite frank, having spoken to the headmistress of the school on several occasions and being told, asking questions about sex education in the schoolyard is inappropriate when they're going to teach my child that stuff. So I'm not allowed to talk to the staff about it in public because it's inappropriate. that they want to teach my 10-year-old child. What on earth are the government thinking? What on earth are the schools thinking? What are the teachers thinking? Why are we even in this situation? Why are schools not asking questions? Why are they going along with it? You know, we're damned if we do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, and you know what, you made a really good point, but you know what the answer to that question is? You're already doing it, you're here. Laura, you're here. You're here trying to get us out of the schools. You're doing all you can do. You're here fighting. That's all you can do is try to fix the system. Right, guys, I want to thank you all so much for tonight. It has been really engaging, and I was actually really nervous, but you've made it so easy for me. I'm going to pass it over to Adele now. Adele's a Trojan of Torvine. Adele's got lots of stuff going on. She's been doing FOIs as well in the community. So guys, listen up to Adele because she knows more about what's going on in your area, okay? Thank you all so much for this opportunity.
Right, so just to fill you in a little bit about Torvine, RSE is going on in Torvine, it is going on in Cwmbran. Nantcelyn School was a pilot school for RSE, Green Meadow Primary School was a pilot school for RSE. Fortunately, I then have friends in these schools, so they have been passing me on the information. Last year I did FOIs to Torvine Council, and I know that many parents also wrote to the schools themselves. The school response was a blanket response from Torvine Council saying to refer to Torvine Council. I've just done another FOI, because this is starting in September. So my head is thinking Torvine Council should know by now what our children are going to be learning. I did an FOI to Torvine Council just last week asking if they could provide the name of all the government approved resources that have been given for schools to use. I had that response today. The government have not released their government approved resources yet. So this education is coming in September, which is just 6 weeks away. So as Kim was saying, it's going to be woven into the curriculum. The new Curriculum Assessment Act now puts responsibility for the curriculum on the head teacher's shoulder. So, yay! Schools have got more freedom to teach what they want and design it how they want. But that means your child is going to this primary school, so you're having a chat with the parents. That's not happening in my school, so you now think it's not going to happen in your school. Your head teacher might want it, their head teacher might not. So how much they learn or what resources they choose. The overview that Kim showed of the 25 countries also tells us who was materials. So you need to look out for brook, bitch, mermaids, stonewall, Popanolly. These are all government-approved resources in England. Bish, Brook, Durex, they're all mentioned in our documents for the UK. Bish is one of the resources which encourage children to make sex lists with their boyfriends and girlfriends, so you can tick off what you're willing to do with each other. So we know 6 weeks' time, September, this education is starting. The teachers still haven't even been given any resources. They don't even know who to go and look at. So how, in 6 weeks, are the teachers going to be trained, going to have their lesson plans, their lesson content, when the government still haven't even approved or released the approved resources that they are going to use? The FOI also says that Torvine Council are not going to provide you with the government approved list when it does come. That it is up to your head teacher. So parents need to contact their schools and see what their schools are using. I would encourage you to still contact Torvine Council because your school might not be using a resource right now that you're unhappy with, but they're still on their list and they can use those resources at any time. So it's really, really important that you get onto those. As Kim mentioned, we've already had in Torvine, we were sent a video of school children putting on condoms onto a dildo. This was a class of 11, 12-year-olds. We had lots of comments of, well, that's okay, I would put a condom on a banana or on a cucumber. It's a dildo, and it's a very adult male dildo that these children are putting condoms on. The children whose brains are not fully developed until they are 25, who lack impulse control, who lack the ability to make good decisions, to make good choices. But they need to learn this. So you're telling me that this 12-year-old is going to remember to walk around with this condom in his pocket. He's then going to remember to put it on, properly. He's going to ask the girl's permission. She's also going to show him how to do it because she learns it in class as well. But what about the children who, like that, who may have already experienced sexual trauma of some sort? How do the teachers know to filter those children out before all these children were presented with very adult male genitalia put in front of them? And a lot of people keep saying about, you've got to look at the other side, and as Kim has said, this is desensitizing. So I pulled my daughter out of school, much to her disappointment. So I decided I would put her back in. She's been back in, she's only been back a short while, and with the NSPCC Pantosaurus has come into school. Pantosaurus has been in school for a long time, except now they've added in genitalia terminology into the Pantosaurus. So my daughter tells me that they had the Pantosaurus today. I'm saying, okay, that's not so bad. But then I realised that the terminology is in it as well. So what did my daughter's class do? All the children called out the names of their genitalia, their nicknames, their pet names. And as Kim has said, your child has now just told various adults, the teacher, the teaching assistant. Maybe you've got one or two autistic children in the class as well, and they've got learning support. So another 2 TAs. These are all strangers. They all now know the names of your child's genitalia. So, Torvine, for those of you, you just need to keep contacting your schools, you just need to keep speaking to your schools. Don't say no for an answer. We've seen a lot in England where schools are being told that resources are copyrighted, so the parents can't see them, or that they need to come into school to see them. Just don't take any bothers. Those who are in Torvine, if you are, again, as Kim said, we're here to support you all. I am happy to attend go with any parent, and speak with any teacher, but it is not easy. It is not easy at all. The teachers it's grooming of them as well. They believe that they are delivering a good education on kindness and respect, and this is our job to show them, well, actually, we're already seeing what's being taught here, and there's a lot more to this than kindness and respect. My FOI to Torvine, I wanted to clarify again about the removal of parental rights, and also ask what was going to be the school's policy for those parents who are still going to remove their children, or say that they still want to remove their children. They didn't have a response to this other than, no, the government have said that parents are not to remove. So they don't seem to have a policy in place, or certainly one that they can show us on what to do with parents who are challenging the parental opt-out. They provided me no information on that. I did ask them, will Torvine be using the trans toolkit, which they stated no. I do know other boroughs in Wales are using the trans toolkit. You can actually go onto a website. What do you want to know? You can Google trans toolkits, and where other people have done FOIs, there's actually a list of all the boroughs in Wales that are using the trans toolkit. So that is all the information we've got kind of for Torvine at the moment. We do know that, so secondary schools, year 7, this is not going to year 8, year 9, year 10 and year 11 yet, although this is about preventing teenage pregnancy. They're not actually going to learn this. It will go into year 7. It's not starting in every secondary school. Kim also mentioned around her son with autism. We know that the rate of teenage autistic girls and with gender dysphoria or rapid onset gender dysphoria is skyrocketing. We do know, for example, Cranbridge will be one of the schools that is indefinitely getting this in September. Again, very keen to know how they are doing developmental appropriate, how they are setting a whole school with children with special educational needs. So if anybody does know anybody who's got any children attending Cranbridge, I would encourage them to speak to their head teachers and again, ask for the resources which haven't been given out yet. So that's all I've got to say on Torvine and all I know on Torvine, but if anyone wants to ask me anything, you can. But just to let you know, so just change over to the fundraiser. As I said, as you know, we've got to raise some money. So there are some fundraisers going on. I am trying to organise, well, I am organising, a nationwide fundraiser, sponsored walk, sponsored run, sponsored cycle, wherever you want to go, wherever you want to do it, however many you want to do it. Is to register. You will get a link so people can sponsor you online, or we can also give paper sponsor forms. We've got Gearite up in the corner there. He's organising his fundraiser. He's going to be travelling 97 miles from Carnarvon to Bilthwells in 4 days. He'll be walking. So he's doing that today. So Emma and Julie and family and friends, they're walking from Newport to Lantony Valley, which is 25 miles. They'll be going through Newport, Cwmbran, Pontypool, Abergavenny. And as people are walking, this is spreading awareness. You know, wearing t-shirts, having high-vis vests, having flags. And as we're walking through these towns, that's going to raise awareness as well. People want to know why you're raising money, why are you walking, what are you doing? So we've got Emma doing that. Myself and my daughter are also going to be doing a 24-hour walk. Got it kind of starting just beyond Crickhowell, eventually then coming to Blenavon, from Blenavon into Cwmbran. I'm going to get that to end at the bandstand in Cwmbran, perhaps, and get a bit of a group in Cwmbran meeting. I don't have a date for mine. I do have some personal family stuff going on that has been making me unable to commit to a date at the moment, but I will be doing that. So I'm raising money for that. Other people raising money as well. So the forms over there, if you'd like to come and speak to myself, Kim, anybody afterwards, if you'd like to do something fundraising yourself. And I have sponsor forms if you would like to sponsor myself or Gearite or Emma. There's links on the website to the fundraiser in general. You don't even have to sponsor anybody, just donate to the fundraiser. But it's very important now that we get raising this money, and just keep spreading it, share awareness, share the sponsors, and donate and encourage others to donate. And that's all we can do. Doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot. So, thank you.
So I just want to thank you all for coming tonight, really. We've got lots of leaflets there by the door you can take with you. There's these white ones, I've got these ones here and white ones. These can go through doors. I would like to see them in people's windows though. You know, we've got banners as well there. We've got those all around the place. There are leaflets you cannot put through doors. We've had to put a 16 sticker on them because we don't believe children should have access to it. But this is our opportunity now, guys. All eyes are on Wales, and I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that we are going to smash this. We will put Wales on the map. They kept us last for a reason. Let's not disappoint them, guys. We are Welsh and we can do this, right? All together we will. Thank you all for coming. Just subscribe to our website, www.publicchildprotectionwales.org. We are the platform for everyone, no matter your religion, your sexuality, whatever, whoever you are welcome on our platform. Obviously, apart from the beer fence.
Yes, just because I know a few people have asked me about events now, I will put a piece of paper over on this table. If you want to write your email address down, Kim or Lucia will add you to the subscription list, and then you will get frequent emails then telling you of all the events coming up, any news, any changes. So if you just write your email address down, then you will get regular emails from Public Child Protection Wales, keeping you in touch with everything. Brilliant, thank you.
We do have one event. We have regular demonstrations outside the Senedd every third Saturday of the month. The 20th of August, we will not be outside the Senedd. We will be outside the train station. Nobody's filming now, are they? Phil? Not filming you?
Yeah.
Okay.